Interesting Mandela effect here, guys. I don't know if you've noticed, but the Sphinx got its nose back. You can clearly tell it's there. You go and try to look at any pictures online or the internet or anything, and it's always had its nose. Don't do y'all remember it? Remember it used to not have a nose, and like Napoleon had shot it off back in the day and all that. Well, here it is. I mean, you can see all the brickwork that's all up inside of it and everything. But yeah, you can see that the nose is here, and I don't really see any signs of fixing it, although this does look a little lighter than the other, and just kidding. So here's the Sphinx, guys, and everybody is always got you on that one, huh? Everybody's always said that Napoleon shot the nose off of this thing, and uh, and a lot of people have just gone with that, and it's still taught in school and books and things like that. But if one looks into it, or one finds somebody who has looked into it and sends them some information, thanks Sheila, you end up seeing that there's quite a bit of a different story that goes on that you can easily find the truth in. And one thing I want you to notice here off of it is it's built into layers. You can see this line here, and this line here, and this line here, and line here on the top. And it's the reason that the head's kind of flat topped is that they didn't put an extra little sliver on the top of it there, but what they're trying to do is give you the depiction. Now, one thing to note here is that you can tell that this is different stone than this is down here. And a lot of people have noticed that, from the flange here up, it's a different stone, and it had been replaced, and the head's really not the right size for this thing in any way, shape, or form. But you have to have a large stone if it's going to reach out past here to cantilever that weight that's all going to be on it out here. You're going to have a stone that goes way back to the back here, right, to be able to hold that weight. And then this goes on top and goes on top and goes on top. So it makes you also wonder how they built this. I mean, it's an incredible feat in itself, and everybody's been enamored with it forever. There's the little cubby hole that you can get into up here. There's a opening up on top of the skull, one in the middle of his back, and supposedly one up under his paw, and then one under each side of his belly. And they've gone down there, but we haven't got to find out too much information about it. And they said, oh, it was empty, and this always just looks conspicuous and everything. But let's look into this. Napoleon shot that nose off with a cannon, because people just do that, huh? Whitey just does that. Well, let's look into this. If we look, we can find some of the earliest photographs of it, and you can tell that even since this time here, they had fixed the pharaoh's flange over here on the side, which has been destroyed. And you can tell it seems like this is in a lot better shape than it was. The eyebrows, everything seems to be in a better shape than it was. You can see this man here standing next to up under the ear too. Give you a reference, and look how eroded the neck is. Now, they fixed this twice since then. Once apparently with bad stone, and once again with now this hard of stone. Apparently this is a harder stone than this is by far and lasting, and no wonder it's just eroded away. And of course before that they talk about water erosion and things like that. But let's look into this again. There's an old Bedouin picture too, from some of the earliest pictures ever taken of it, and they've gotten it pretty much dug out now. But in the other picture you saw that it was just buried up under the sand all the way up to here, straight across. And people have, dug down into here and tried to see what they could find, and any of the people that dug through there probably didn't find it. But you can see this man squatting right here, and a guy right up on top of his head there. You can see the depiction here of it, and even now, doesn't this look more fixed than the last one we were looking at? Okay, just going to leave that alone though. Now what we want to do is look into the Napoleon theory a little bit deeper and see what we can find about before pictures, what was done in lithography and just regular drawn art. This is Frederick Louis Norden, and he did many sketches of Egypt whenever he went there, and it was before the time of Napoleon. And let's look at some of his sketches. And here's one that's done, and it surely looks like the nose is just shot right off of that thing already. Now, are we to believe these little Bedouin soldiers out here shot off his nose, or what? Because this predates Napoleon. Napoleon wasn't even born yet. And in this, you can see that he feels there's a lot better ridges on top that have really worn away from now. Doesn't look too eroded. Little compartment there is noted in his drawings, though, too. Here's another one that it shows where he did more of a face straight on view and how he could really distinctly tell the eyes in it. And you can tell this is torn up here on the side, much worse than the other side, just as shown. And here you can see that the nose is destroyed. But in his art, you can also see the edging of his nose right here and here. Kind of indicates that it wasn't, giant wide in any way, but more, I don't know. You look at the appearance this man gives, and he's able to sketch and draw real well. And how eroded away that neck is. We've never seen it in that shape, because once they decided to use it for a landmark, they had already fixed it up once before it eroded away, and then we did the one that you saw in the footage before. The Great Pyramid in the back. So it looks like it never really had the cobra remnant on top. Perhaps they had some piece sitting up there that had fallen off in antiquity. Someone had taken it away. Or it perhaps never had it. Quite interesting. Let's look at something else. It tells us a little more about it. Okay, so here's what Smithsonian has to say about it after much investigation. You can tell this is built better than it was before, and clearly here you can denote two types of stone, right? So let's look at what they say about it here real quick. Legends have passed over hundreds of years regarding the simple omission in that photograph of the Sphinx and the Pyramid of Khafre, part of the Giza Pyramid complex in Egypt. Where's his nose? Who's got your nose? Many of us have heard the tale that a cannonball fired by Napoleon soldiers hit the nose and caused it to break off. Sketches of the Sphinx, though, by Dane Friedrich Louis Norden, that I just showed you, were created in 1737 and published in 1755, well before the era even of Napoleon. However, these drawings illustrate the Sphinx without a nose and clearly contradicts the legend. So what happened? Well, the Egyptian Arab historian al-Makrizi wrote in the 15th century that the nose was actually destroyed by a Sufi Muslim named Muhammad Saim al-Dar in 1378. Egyptian peasants made offerings to the Great Sphinx in the hope of controlling the flood cycle, which would result in a successful harvest they had tried, and were apparently in a drought. So, outraged by this blatant show of devotion, Saim al-Dar destroyed the nose and was later executed for the vandalism. Whether this is absolute fact is still debatable, but it was cartographed by them before anybody really cared about what happened to the nose. And so that ought to give you some insight into it and perhaps the truth and reality of it all. And no, it wasn't people trying to deface it to do this or do that and everything. It's a totally different motive and a totally different story, and involving totally different people. Like, share, and subscribe, guys. Thanks, Sheila. Peace.